Be alien. Be balanced. Be you. Be genuine. Star Wars, whether it wants to or not, has bridged the generation gap from someone like me who's almost 40 to my son who is 8 years old and who loves Star Wars because of The Force Awakens, not the original trilogy, even though it led him to the original trilogy, and now he loves it. And I'm going to talk about that in this video. I'm going to talk about where the Resistance got all their money and why the Rebels are just being beat down to shit. We're going to talk about why wars, keep reoccurring in the Star Wars universe, even though it says in the title Star Wars. But we're going to talk about why that is. And I'm just going to talk about my basic opinions. And this is a direct video made from the comment sections of all the videos I've been watching and me going back and forth with my new friends from some of these comment sections. So sit back, relax, and just listen to my voice. This is the commentary, and I hope you guys enjoy this. This is my channel, Dillo Tonight. Just to show you how big of a geek I am, this is some of my Star Wars collectible memorabilia stuff that I keep up in my room near my desk. Cannot live without this stuff. This is how much I love Star Wars. Hello everyone, this video is a direct response to some of the comment questions that I get based on the comments that I made on someone else's videos. I've been doing a whole lot of Star Wars searching around the internet. I've been talking to a lot of people, and I do this anyway. This is not a new development, especially with a new movie out like The Last Jedi. I am all over the place trying to talk to my fellow Star Wars fans, just like I am, who grew up loving these things. And I thought I need to do a response because a lot of them in the comment section noticed I had a channel and was like, why don't you just make a video and we'll just watch a video on it? Because honestly, I get tired of fucking typing all this shit out. So I thought, you know what, let me just go ahead and give a few of these people what they want. And even if it's 10 people, they can come and listen to me talk about this instead of me typing it all out, and I can just direct them to this video instead of me having to type it all out. So I thought the first thing I would say is, welcome to my channel if you haven't been here before. And this is not a Star Wars exclusive channel. I am bridging my way from Exotic Animal channel exclusively to a whole new realm of content that expands pretty much everything. It's an umbrella channel, a bridge channel, you know, an open space here. You know, I want an open universe, and I'll just pretty much upload whatever the fuck I want when I think of it, if it's relevant. That's pretty much how this channel is going to go for right now. And I'll find my niche in there somewhere. I got some things on horizon that I want to do. As far as this channel goes, that are in motion right now. But for right now, I'm just kind of just putting out content where I'm asked. One of the themes that are going to stay with this channel, hopefully, is I still want to put out videos that people ask me to put out. So I'm not just putting out stuff to please myself. So this is going to be a direct commentary based on some of the conversations I've had with other people on other forums and YouTube videos in the comment section, just going back and forth with them, not in a bad way. There's no hate here. I'm always respectful of other people's point of views. This is just my opinion and point of views on Star Wars, and I'll be popping up some of my answers and some of my comments on the screen, and I'll put links in the description to the videos that I commented on, so you can go and talk to some of these people if you have an opinion, or you can just comment below in the section below if you have want to leave me any information on what your point of view is on some of these topics. I'm going to go into the first one, which is the appreciation of the original trilogy. And my appreciation for the original trilogy is through the roof. I adore that series. I love that series. But I'm also a fan of the prequel trilogy, episodes 1 through 3. I love all the canon stuff. I loved all the legend stuff, especially that time period between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. I love books like Shadow of the Empire and Heir of the Empire with Thrawn. He's one of my favorite characters. Good to see him in the Rebels show. But I'm not so much of a fanboy where I'm going to say that there's nothing wrong with Star Wars. There are some things that are unwatchable in Star Wars sometimes. You go and watch the Clone Wars series. There are a few episodes where I'm just like, oh my god, I'd be so glad when this particular episode ends. But that's with any medium that has this much material spanning over thousands of years, going back all the way to the Old Republic. You know, those games, Knights of the Old Republic is still my favorite game of all time. I love that game. And the Sith Lords is my second favorite. I love those two games. And they are still considered canon, which is awesome that they said the Old Republic is still canon. So that's great. You can play the Old Republic and it's connected right to Kylo Ren and all these guys now. But what I'm getting into, one of the things I got back and forth with people in the comment sections is about appreciation for these different eras, I should say. The original trilogy is great to me, but it has been enhanced by The Last Jedi and The Force Awakens. Because my second favorite character is Luke Skywalker. My favorite character is Darth Vader. I loved him before the prequels. After the prequels came out, I loved him even more because I got 3 more films developing his story. I love Luke Skywalker just that much more now because of what I saw in The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. Although Force Awakens, he didn't say a word, it's still tied in The Last Jedi. I liked his... he was spoken of in that film, which adds to the lore. You don't always have to show a character to appreciate him and get something out of him. So I think that's awesome. I love what they did with his character. So I believe that The Empire Strikes Back, Episode 5, is, if you even take out the Star Wars title, is one of the greatest films of all time. One of the greatest masterpieces of all time. So of course, because that's in the original trilogy, I'm going to hold that in high regard. But Return of the Jedi was not one of my favorite movies in all these movies, ranking wise. It was actually pretty low because I don't like the Ewoks. I'm the first person to tell you I try to like them. Every time I watch Return of the Jedi, I cannot deal with those Ewoks. I don't know what it is about them. I just don't like them. They just don't fit with the narrative. You're going back, you got these little cute teddy bears, and then you're juxtaposing that with this awesome space battle and this Sith, Jedi duel on the Death Star, and you cut back and you keep cutting back to teddy bears. They look like Care Bears, and it just connected that out of my head. And if you grew up in the 80s, you know exactly what the fuck I'm talking about, because the Care Bears were hot back then, and all I saw was fucking Care Bears. Until this day, it's still hard to get that out of my mind. But I'm starting to appreciate it more as I get older, now that we got more films, But when you only had 3 at the time, you were like, why are you wasting time with these fucking Care Bears? But that was back in the 80s, so we're in 2018 now. But the prequel trilogies, I understand why people don't like them, but this is my biggest argument when it comes to the people in the comment sections who try to blast the fact that they don't like the prequels, but hate these new movies because of Disney is ruining them, quote unquote, and Kathleen Kennedy is ruining them, and they don't know what the hell they're doing. But you bag on the first 3 episodes, who were directed by George Lucas, and who I love George Lucas. He is literally one of my heroes and my idols. I love everything he did creatively. We wouldn't have Star Wars if it weren't for him, and we wouldn't have it now if he wasn't so unselfish and cared so much about his employees. They ended up selling something he did not have to sell. He sold it to save the company because he knew the prequels were so divisive, and people were bagging on so bad that at the time he said, maybe I should just give the people what they want. I'll just go ahead and move on. The stories I want to tell, people don't want to see them. He had no intention of making 7, 8, 9. And even though I think he probably would have went ahead and made it. And I'm interested in seeing what his 7, 8, 9 would look like. We do have glimpses of it. He has done, if you look it up on YouTube, you'll see that he, even though he said he was never going to make 7, 8, 9, he did have an idea where it would go if he was going to make them. And it's actually very interesting. And it's a lot different, but it's not as much different as what we think now. From some of the stuff I saw, there's some similarities there with what he would have done and what they're doing now. But let's just go back to the prequel trilogy. George Lucas wrote and directed all 3 films in that one. He didn't do that in the original trilogy. So I think a lot of people, they love the original trilogy, but George Lucas only directed A New Hope. He did not direct Episode 5, and he did not direct Episode 6. Okay, and I just don't understand the disconnect between that, where you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't say you love the original trilogy because George Lucas did it, but you hate the prequel trilogy because George Lucas did it, and you now hate this one because he didn't do it. So which one is it? So that also leads me to the second point that I want to make, and that's people talking about the resistance and the rebels versus the First Order and the Empire, the similarities there. Basically, all the similarities between The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, to what they claim to love so much, which is the original trilogy. Now, I will say this. The Force Awakens is obviously a lot like A New Hope. There's no getting around that. We know that. There are certain beats that they had to put in there. But I do not understand why people don't see why the fan reaction to the prequel trilogy is the reason why The Force Awakens may have ended up, now I know this is just my opinion, may have ended up like the way it did. If people love the prequel trilogy and they came out and said, hey, you know, we're going to make 7, 8, 9. If people fundamentally loved and accepted those films in that trilogy, now, a lot of people do like Revenge of the Sith, but people hate the Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. People really hate Attack of the Clones. It's literally at the bottom of almost all really diehard Star Wars fans' list. I actually love that film. You have to rank things down lower, you know, because there are other great films in there, but that's not because I hate the film. It is a little lower, but it's not because I hate the film. It's because it has to fit on the list somewhere. And Star Wars has so many good films that a really good film of mine, like Attack of the Clones, is at the bottom of a list, in my opinion. But what I'm trying to get at is, with that fan reaction, what was Disney having acquired all this material and having acquired all this property from George Lucas? Star Wars, the most recognizable brand in the world by far, is Star Wars. It's a worldwide phenomenon. They got this thing in there. They're like, okay, well, let's go. What are we gonna do? We're gonna make 7, 8, 9. Okay, what's the first one gonna be about? What kind of story do you think that they're going to come up with? If they would have deviated and literally went in a direction where nobody ever seen, meaning none of the original cast comes back, there's no mention to the prequels, since they're trying to avoid the prequels like crazy anyway, and all their marketing and the video games, and I mean, the prequels are literally like not even a part of the Star Wars universe if you look at all the stuff outside of the films. So if they went in and whole new fresh set of characters, no references to anything else in the Star Wars universe, the fans would have went fucking crazy. Die-hard fans would have went fucking crazy. They would have been like, how do you make an episode 7 and not mention Luke Skywalker? Now, unless they made the movie 200 years after Return of the Jedi, if you made it anywhere near the lifespan of where a human being can live, you have to have Han, Luke, and Leia in the films. And if that's the case, then what are you going to do with their characters? You cannot do something that's too far removed from the Legends, because at the time the Legends stuff was still considered canon until The Force Awakens came out, where it hit everybody in the head, mainly with Kylo Ren being the son of Han and Leia instead of the twins from the Legends. If you haven't read the Legends stuff, go read the Legends stuff. It's shit's unfucking believable. Would have I preferred that they went the Legends stuff when it came to Luke, Leia, and Han and their kids? Yeah. Hell yeah. Hell fucking yeah. I wish they would have done it. Because I am fine with what we have. Kylo Ren is a very unique character, and I'm really happy to have him. Snoke I love that character, but if you just take the characters from Legends and put them in the situations that you have now, even if you want to keep some elements to what JJ came up with, I think that would have made a really, really great, interesting way to bridge the Legends into it. Even if you want to say some of it was not canon, you would have taken a healthy enough a chunk, would have pleased a lot of those Legends fans. And I am a Legends fan. Not all of the stuff. Don't get me wrong. There are some Legends stuff that goes way too far. I'm not a huge fan of the comic books because, at least with the books, you're kind of visualizing yourself. The comic books, I think, visually, storytelling-wise, the ways, I just don't. I never got into the comics at all. There's a couple that I kind of like, but ultimately, they're not page turners for me. But back to the films. So the whole thing with the films and what they're supposed to do with them, I think that's pretty much all they could do. All you could do was really go through and find some characters that are like some of the Legend stuff, because at the time I even thought that maybe Rey and Kylo were Han and Leia's the twins from the books, before we start getting some really good narrative coming out of Lucasfilm and Disney about where these characters are going. But at the time when they first started talking about them, a lot of us thought, hey, yeah, they're going to try to pick some stuff out of Legends. Come to find out, no, it's a whole new story. Or is it because the big narrative problem with these films is that people think it's too much on the narrative point of A New Hope, what The Force Awakens is, and that The Last Jedi was going to be kind of the Empire Strikes Back, which we found that The Last Jedi is not like anything we've ever seen in Star Wars. It's its own film. It fits on its own. And that leads me to my biggest point, because this is not just a celebration of Star Wars. I am saying a lot in this video what I don't like about Star Wars. One of the things I don't like is that if you're going to bring out films with big vision and a big grand scope, if in the Star Wars universe, both of the prequel trilogies, the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy, both knew where they were going from A to Z. Episode 1, we knew that Anakin, as a child, was going to end up as Darth Vader in the suit. We knew in the original trilogy, or at least George Lucas did at the time, he knew that Luke Skywalker was going to come from this dreamer on this planet to being one of the most powerful Jedi of all time and aiding his father in balancing the Force. He knew that. They don't know in these new trilogy stories where the story's going, which is why I think is a very jarring for people, because The Force Awakens, you can tell the movie ended and it could have went a billion different ways. Not any movie that leaves on a cliffhanger like The Force Awakens did can go in any direction. But what I thought was interesting was that not only did it go in a different direction, it went in a different direction without a time jump. It was the first Star Wars film where there was no time jump, significant time jump in between films. The Last Jedi picked up literally, some can say if you look at the events, not even a day after the Force Awakens. So that's a big jarring jolt tone wise. If you put these movies in back to back, the tone really don't fit together really. The tones are so different. Even if you listen to the lightsaber sounds, the sound effects are different. Rey's lightsaber looks completely different than it does in The Force Awakens. If you take a look at it, Kylo Ren's lightsaber is intensified more. Now, that's a special effects thing. That's not a huge deal, but you can tell it's just the way the lightsabers illuminate the screen. Now, that's a cinematography thing, but if you're going to do a jump like that, you can't change really the cinematography all that much. All of J.J. Abrams' lens flares, all that shit's gone. All the brilliant colors that he got, it's got washed out a little bit. I don't have a problem with it. I think it's cool. I can see why somebody who would not like that though, because they don't really tonally, they don't fit together at all. But I like that because each film, even though it's not a huge time jump, each film is its own film, so I don't really have so much of a problem with it. But I think a lot of people will. And going forward, if Episode 9 comes out and it's a smash hit and it ties up everything really well, which apparently they want to do 10, 11, and 12, then does Episode 9 really have to wrap everything up? Really? Maybe with Kylo Ren, but we don't know. I mean, after seeing The Last Jedi, who knows where they're going to go in Episode 9. They got a clean slate, and that brings us back to the problem. They don't know either. They have no idea where they want to go. They had to change directors to J.J. Abrams from Colin Trevorrow, so his story was going to be put in place. Now J.J. is bringing back in his story, so they have no idea. That's disturbing to me because I feel like these films, you need to know where you're going and things this big, and they don't have a fucking clue where it's going, and that's a little bit disturbing to me because you can't have directors coming in and doing, shoot-off films like Rogue One in the episodic series, because a lot of people have said The Last Jedi could have been just as much as like an offshoot story as Rogue One was, and not really an episode film. And I consider the Rogue One, a Star Wars story, I consider that to be Episode 0. That movie fits into the Star Wars universe perfectly, and you can put in A New Hope right after it. And tone-wise, they somehow, even though they've been separated by almost 50 fucking years of screen time, like 40 years of screen time, you're talking about putting those two back to back, watching them back to back, and you can watch them as one film. Episode 4, if you watch Rogue One right before that, they just fit so well together. But again, and people might say, well, Empire Strikes Back didn't fit with tone with, yeah, but there was a time jump, so you kind of got a little bit of a difference there, in time. Time had passed, but, with Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, when time doesn't pass, it's kind of jarring because it brings in a lot of questions of like, how did you get, what is going on here? And in a way, it should be less confusing than if you have a time jump. But I think with them not having it, it actually confused more people. And the final topic I'm going to speak about in this video is the problem people have with things kind of been faction-wise in order, set in a place, things been brought down, things been brought back up, rehashed over and over and over again, as far as ship design, planets, whatever. But the ultimate thing that drives me crazy with a lot of people in their comment sections on these videos is, and people who make the videos who complain about these films, is they have a problem with people enjoying these films because of the poetic nature of it, that things reoccur. And when The Force Awakens happens, people shit their fucking... Oh my goodness, when that movie came out, people were losing their minds, especially Star Wars fans, true Star Wars fans, that Starkiller Base was too much like the Death Star. And that brings me back to, you can't have your cake and eat it too, because in the first trilogy we've had in Star Wars, the original trilogy, they blew up the Death Star in the very first film. And in less than 10 years, they were already building a second Death Star. It was almost complete. It was functional before it was complete. And it was actually bigger than the first Death Star. And people don't say anything about that. They say that because of the time jump thing, again with The Last Jedi, The Force Awakens, they blow up Starkiller Base. And then they have the question of, well, why is the Resistance now the rebels? Because they got the shit kicked up in this movie. They're not even a Resistance anymore. They're a band of rebels that can... The Resistance got reduced to a band of people that could all fit on the Millennium Falcon at the end of the movie. That's getting your fucking ass kicked. But they say, well, why are they running? They just blew up the Starkiller Base. Why are they running? What's happened? Where are all their ships? Where are all their... Just think about this. The First Order comes out with a new... basically the third Death Star, and it's literally it's so much massively bigger than the other two Death Stars that it's not even close. But I mean, you could fit 50 Death Stars in this thing, and it blows up the Republic's basically everything that makes them function. They blew up the Republic. They literally blew up every sympathizer, everything that makes the Republic run, the Resistance run. All their backers, all the people who aid them, that fund them, all their ships, all their bases, they're all gone. Starkiller Base did that. So them blowing them up at the end, Poe blowing up the Starkiller Base and everything that happened on that base, they were too late. The First Order had won. They already did what they built the damn thing for, and it was to blow up. It was to reduce the Republic to a band of rebels. And that's what they did. So at the beginning of The Last Jedi, what do we see? You see a band of rebels who have hardly any resources. That are scrambling like fucking crazy to try to regroup. Because again, there's no time jump here. This happens literally. Starkiller Base destroys the Republic hours before The Last Jedi. And they are on the run. Yeah, they blew up Starkiller Base. Starkiller Base was built for one reason. And it did it. It was too late. They were too late blowing it up. It's a beautiful piece, but the people who complain about that, that's like saying Luke Skywalker in A New Hope, was that not a waste of time blowing up the first Death Star and all those people dying doing it? Because they ended up building another one anyway. So was all of Luke's efforts a waste of time? Because that's what they're saying about Starkiller Base. The Resistance, it's a complete waste of time if they're going to blow it up if they're going to be on the run. No, it's not. That's what happens with war. And I think a lot of people bring up, why is the Resistance there to begin with? That's what happens with war. The last time I checked in human history, just because people are celebrating the end of a war, a victory, like they were in episode 6, people are celebrating, they're happy, and people are saying that should have been the end of the story. When in history have we ever had some kind of a horrible crisis happen, and people are celebrating, they're having a good time, and nothing ever happens negatively, bad, disgusting, inhuman after that event? When does it happen? If you want to talk about school shootings, they happen. Those are horrible events. You can have the happiest thing of all time happen to you, and the next day something horrible like that could happen. The Las Vegas incident, 9/11, all the wars we've had, the Civil War, all that stuff. You tie all that stuff in. Just because a bunch of people are celebrating a victory does not mean that victory is going to hold true and there's going to be peace and utopia for the rest of these people's lives. History is doomed to repeat itself. We learned that in history class. I mean, there would be no history classes in school if history didn't repeat itself. History would be paper thin if that was the case. It's not. Our history books are very thick, and that means there is a lot of stuff that people have not learned from the past And there are a lot of new things that people are coming in with. And that's what I love about Star Wars, because that's what they were introducing in The Last Jedi. People said it was too different. Yeah, there's a lot of things that are about The Last Jedi that are repeating itself, and in The Force Awakens, but a lot of stuff that's new. We've never seen a dynamic in the Force between Rey and Kylo the way that we see it in these films. We've never seen someone like Snoke, which, unlike Senator Palpatine, who was rich, Emperor Palpatine, Lord Sidious, even though Lord Sidious was, or Palpatine, Emperor Palpatine, to the masses, they all believed he was just an emperor. Most of the galaxy did not know that he was actually a Sith Lord, that he was that the galaxy was being run by a Sith Lord. That's why the rebels were trying to get back at him. He's a Sith Lord, but the Republic doesn't know that. Democracy was taken away and given to an emperor, and the people of the galaxy are being shrouded by the dark side. They have no idea that their beloved emperor is actually a Sith Lord who could give a shit less about anything but other than ruling the galaxy. That's all he cares about. I mean, of course he cared about money and things like that. You have to have that stuff, but ultimately, look at Sidious. Did he look like somebody to you that gave a shit about money? But you juxtapose that against someone like Snoke. He's walking around with gold robes on. He literally was wearing gold slippers in the film. And he clearly is coming from a place of wealth. He has resources. And after all we've seen in all the Star Wars films with resources, I mean, look at Snoke's ships. That, I don't care what faction you're from, that would take an incredible amount of money to fund something as big as Snoke's ship. Those dreadnoughts, all those troopers. It's just an Starkiller base. Just think about that. The funding this is not a volunteer service. You would have to pay for that shit that went into that base. That base was cut into a planet. That's Snoke's doing. Now we might find out in the future, because I'm sure we're gonna get Snoke novels, that's not the case. Then maybe Snoke is, who knows? We don't know. That's another question for another day. Is the real backstory behind Snoke and the true rise to the Resistance and how to the First Order, and how he fits into all that. Because obviously the First Order and Snoke go hand in hand. How did that relationship form? That's a very interesting question. And no, not everything has to be built out in the film, because the film is not about Snoke. It's about Kylo Ren, Rey, and all the other heroes and villains in the film. It's not just about Snoke. Snoke was a side character. That's a video for another day as well. But ultimately, going back to it, peacetime in any medium, meaning like stories and real life and everything, that's not as interesting as conflict. And I think that, there's a reason why it's called Star Wars. If we're going to get into a place where there's a celebration that ends the movie in episode 6, they're clapping, everyone's happy, and it goes off, that's fine. You can choose to ignore episode 7 and 8. Nobody says you have to watch them. Though that original trilogy did wrap itself up very well, as I thought the prequel trilogy wrapped itself up very well. If you're a fan of the prequel trilogy, you can watch episodes 1 and 3, and Darth Vader rising up in the suit and the Empire being formed is enough as a trilogy. To me, if I didn't see the original trilogy and this sequel trilogy, the episodes 1 through 3, that's great storytelling to me. I'll take the end of the week, and I don't need to see what happened after that at all. The original trilogy, same way. You got just enough information to know exactly what happened in that time period, and it wraps itself up nicely. And I believe, truly, if you've never seen the original trilogy or the prequel trilogy, episodes 7, 8, and 9 are poised to wrap itself up as its own story without you really having to see any of the other ones. And that's good storytelling. You can hop in anywhere in these trilogies. You can pick up any one of these and any time period and sit down and say, you know what, I'm just going to watch from here to here. And in my mind, because we all have brains, we're all human beings. Nobody's forcing anything down your throat. If you don't want to, if you think the story ends in episode 6 and you don't like these two new films, this new trilogy, and 10, 11, and 12, which are going to be coming out, and Rian Johnson's Offset trilogy, and all the anthology films, Rogue One, Solo, the Obi-Wan Kenobi film is coming out, the Boba Fett film that's going to be coming out, the Old Republic films that might be out if Rian Johnson chooses to go. He said he might go that way. We'll see. After the backlash of Last Jedi, we'll see if they still give Rian Johnson his own trilogy, because apparently Star Wars fans are shitting down Rian Johnson's fucking neck. But I would say I'm enjoying it. I would say to any Star Wars fan, go out, judge for yourself which ones you like. And this would be my final point on this. If you're a fan of Star Wars, there's no downside to any of these things. You're going to find something that you like on all this trilogy-wise. I'm talking broad trilogies. Made to bring in a whole new generation of fans who may have never seen the original trilogy and definitely may have never seen the prequel trilogy because of all the backlash that people have for them. What if you're just getting into Star Wars, or you're just getting to the age where you can understand Star Wars, like my son, who was introduced to Star Wars through truly The Force Awakens, was the first time he actually sat down and was like, wow, I'm investing in these characters. And he's 8. At the time, he was 6 years old when he first saw The Force Awakens, and he had seen the prequels before that and the original trilogy. I tried to show him to him when he was 5. He was not interested in it. He slept through the Phantom Menace. Is that an indictment on Phantom Menace? Yeah, sure it is, right? He woke up doing a pod race scene, right? And the lightsaber scene at the end. But what I'm trying to get at is my little boy who loves Star Wars, his love for Star Wars came from The Force Awakens. That's what propelled him into wanting to watch the other ones. And now he sat down and watched the original trilogy from beginning to end without me even telling him to do it. He wanted to see it for himself. And he actually loves the original trilogy more than the prequels. Now, that's an indictment on the prequels, man. That is an indictment on the prequels. When my son says you want to watch something, the very reason why I hated the Return of the Jedi, my son loves it. He loves the Ewoks. And I fucking hate them. So, I think that is what's great about Star Wars. My own son, who loves Star Wars just as much as me. We're going to go see The Last Jedi again this weekend. For the 4th time, I'm going to go back and see it. He loves it just as much as me because he loves the characters. But he loves them for completely different reasons. And he got into it because of The Force Awakens. And I can't thank Lucasfilm, Disney, Kathleen Kennedy, J.J. Abrams, Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, Harrison Ford, all of them, for deciding to come back and give us something that makes the original trilogy better, makes the prequel trilogy better, and unites generations. That's what it's all about. Star Wars is here to unite generations, ignite generations. Not so much like, hey, this is why we make them, but it does it inadvertently without even having to. It's just what Star Wars has done, what it will do in the future. It's just what makes Star Wars great. Anybody of any age can sit down and watch these stories and get something out of it. And they typically, usually, it's just fun to talk about. I'm making a video, back-to-back videos about Star Wars. That's crazy to me. Because I never thought I would. Even though I'm a true Star Wars fan, I've been talking about Star Wars more this week than anything. And it's been a lot of fun. So the people who in those comment sections, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I made this one for you guys, okay? And I'll see you guys on the next one. If you're new to this channel, please go ahead and subscribe right now. Hit that notification button so you don't miss anything. Get knighted, subscribe. I'll see you guys on the next one. Until then, be you and be genuine. And see you guys next time. Be safe out there.